Okay, welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us live. I am here with a Mr. Terry Tiller, who I've connected with recently, and he is a wealth of knowledge in this space, guys. I'm very impressed with what I've learned so far, and I have learned a lot. And so I know that myself and people in my network have been so keen to learn how to look at projects a little bit more um, with a better eye because, for some of us, it's a very new space. And for many of us, we've been in the space for a long time, we've lost funds, and we just want to get better at being able to decipher whether an opportunity is real or not and what questions to ask and like what do we do when someone sends us some things, like what are some what are our next steps. And so I invited Terry to talk to us all because he's been in this space for a long time. I'm talking decades, okay? And his passion is actually helping, like, community education. He's very, very good at it. And, he's spoken on multiple crypto stages. He actually knows what he's talking about. And, he's retired himself because of his good decisions. So I would love for you, Terry, to come on out and just maybe give a little bit more background about, who you are, why you're here, and then maybe we can dive into some of the questions that I've got to sort of really give these guys as much value as possible. We're not going to speak about certain projects and things because it's bigger than this. Our knowledge is it's bigger than any one project. It's how do we get better in the space so we can really leverage it to create lasting legacies for our family.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate the warm welcome, Marnie. So I'm excited to be here. I love crypto. I see crypto not just as a vehicle for financial freedom, which of course I care about. I'm not some monk up in the woods just, chanting by myself up on the top of the mountain, but I also really care about the freedom that it can bring to humanity, right? Crypto was a tool. Still is our best tool. It's the most international in scope of a financial tool where we have the chance to break the death grip that we've been under with central banking, right? And so this idea that we let one small group of people run a printing press who can print in unlimited quantities and ergo also bribe politicians, bribe anyone they want, steer industry any way they want, has really brought the whole planet into a bad space. And so crypto has a chance to change the world, and blockchain can be used for a lot of very specific applications to create, it's kind of like a truth machine inherently. And so in some ways we want it private in certain departments, and in other ways we want it to be hyper transparent in a way that bad actors can't lie to us. And so it's become a real passion of mine. I've spoke on a bunch of stages. I've spoke many times at an Acapulco. I've gone to a lot of conferences in Miami. I've been a community educator in many different crypto projects. And unfortunately, like everybody else here, I had a learning curve. I had to get hurt a few times to learn some lessons along the way, and they're painful. So if I can prevent any of those painful lessons, we'll try our best to at least look for the biggest red flags and realize that's not always like a hard and fast rule. You still got to be open minded. You can't live the rest of your life just like ultra skeptical, scared of everything. You're going to miss out on way too much if you do. But there's a lot of telltale signs. If we're looking for them, we can avoid them. So we'll try and get through some of that today.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so what I would love to know first off is like I mean, obviously you would get sent things all of the time. Okay, so I want to know, and if someone sends you a video, a little spiel that they've put together, what are your next steps? Because obviously you can't take their word on it, and they may not, people are in scams and they forward those scams on. Okay, so I want to know, like, what are your first steps when someone sends you something? Like, what are you looking for?
Well, the biggest one, the biggest red flag, so we'll go no further and we don't miss this lesson, is watch out for things that offer a fixed return. Like that is the biggest red flag of them all. It's easy in the early days for you to buy into the idea that hey, they're making so much more than this and they're just giving you a fixed conservative amount, right? So because that's the story that they kind of present. They're like, "Well, we're making 73% and we're just giving you 3.7. We're being conservative and we're banking all this other money." Those stories, I've just never seen one of those check out. That is my biggest red flag. If they give you an estimate or a range, I'm still open minded. but it's rare. It's very, very, very rare because in the trading world, even if you're an excellent trader, if you're world class, if you have BlackRock's Aladdin machine, the markets still go up and down, right? They can make money in an up and a down market, but they need volatility, and there are times in the market where there's very little volatility. So where are the returns going to come from that they're promising that they owe you? It doesn't work, right? And so I like, for example, just generically speaking, if you're in crypto, I like token based rewards. Those can be fixed, but not the USD amount, not some return percentage on my dollars. That's the biggest red flag of them all for me. It's the one where I'm totally cutting out and running. If they say we tend to be trading within this range, okay, the mine remains open. Let's explore a little further.
Okay. And if something is like, I know that leadership is very important, like who is the team behind projects. So, how deep do you go into looking into them and where do you check? Like, are you using AI? Like, how do you find that AI's role is in this sort of due diligence process?
You you have to check some, right? But you also have to watch out because if you're expecting any human to be infallible, I mean, that's not sanity. If you're expecting that just because, oh, someone was bankrupt once before, well, maybe they learned some lessons and maybe they're a better person today. Maybe they were bankrupt when they're in their early 20s, but now they're in their 50s and they understand the mistakes that they made and you got to move forward. So you've got to look at who the people are behind it. And one of the things I say too is it depends how much money you're putting in. If I'm just throwing, a small amount, let's just use $1,000 as a baseline amount. If I'm just throwing $1,000 at something, I'm going to do a lot less research. But it depends on your comfort zone with $1,000. For some people, that's a lot of money, and that's not an insult or a judgment. And for some people, that's just not a lot of money. They're willing to take a chance on a flyer, or a risk to reward ratio might be good. So, but if I'm going to put a lot of money in, for me personally, I tend to get on a plane. At some point in time, I want to get on the plane or send someone I really trust, but I prefer to go myself. I like to know the owners. I want to meet them, look them in the eye, have dinner and drinks with them, meet the family, meet the team behind, meet the legal guys, meet the partners. That still doesn't guarantee that I'm not going to get hurt. It doesn't guarantee that maybe they're not scammers. Maybe I look them in the eye and I trust that their intent is good, but it doesn't guarantee they're going to be able to execute on their business model. Everyone's got a great vision, a great plan, a great idea, still got to execute. So that strategy alone hasn't prevented me from not getting hurt, unfortunately, but I do sleep a lot better at night because I can think back to those experiences and I can ask them hard questions and also see how they react when the hard questions come out. It's easy for the average person's asking softball questions and they've seen them and heard them all and they're easy and those answers are easy. But what happens when you press them a little bit? How do they react? And so that goes a long way. But I'm not saying I don't use AI. Sometimes I'll use AI to try and summarize something for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? But one of the biggest problems in our society is how you prompt AI. I don't think people understand how large language models are trained. That's what they're called, the AIs. If you prompt it just in a way, like if you prompt it with a negative prompt to say, is XYZ a scam? Well, you've preempted what you want the AI to go find, and you've skewed the eyeball and the lens and the tone it's going to come back with. And so if it can find anything slightly red flaggish or slightly an anomaly to a baseline, but that baseline may be just comparing it to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is not perfect by any means. So if you're just asking it to compare it to Bitcoin and it comes back like, there's some red flags you should probably run. We live in a society where people don't want to think for themselves. And you can't do that when it comes to your money, right? So you've got to take everything AI says with a critical grain of salt. So if it sends you down a few rabbit trails, go down the rabbit trails before you say no to something, because not getting scammed is very important, right? There's a few financial advisors used to say, rule number one, don't lose your money. Rule number two, see rule number one. So I get that sentiment. I get that you don't want to lose, but missing out on a big opportunity is a much bigger loss in most cases. If you're looking at something that might multiply your money by 100x or 1,000x, and you missed out on it to save $1,000, and you're like, wow, $1,000 not lost. Yeah, congratulations. Except you might have lost on a million. And so you're forced to dig below the surface at some point, right? I looked up a project in the last 6 months, right? And it was like, well, this guy had some connections with a guy who went to jail. AI kind of brought back something like that. Didn't mean he was involved or he did anything wrong. And when you look below the surface, the guy who did go to jail did do one major thing that landed him there. Not that all of his ideas were bad, not that they were all bad people. And so you overlook that. Another one I looked into, this guy who had a bankruptcy. Well, I shouldn't just automatically assume that every venture he's going to do for the rest of his life is going to fail. Entrepreneurs learn lessons, sometimes have bad partners, legal problems that they can't. They, I was in another project before where I think two of the four partners had great intentions. They all ended up in a lawsuit, but I'm kind of forced to reason over time, and this is even looking back in the rear view mirror now, that two of the partners had great intentions and they got dragged in and I got dragged in. It's painful, but it doesn't mean the original two that I kind of believed in the most were doing something wrong. And it appears also with time, it looks like those two have gone on to do something good, and the other two, the ones who were the bad apples, have gone on to create more bad apple situations. So we have to. It's not easy.
I think like, and I've heard of this before, you could be associated with projects or companies or other people. And if those people then do wrong things, that reputation sort of gets attached to you and comes along. And if that person then decided to launch a company, a Google search or a chat GGP search is going to come up with this association. Because I just saw yesterday, I think the top two sources for AIs like chat GGP are Reddit and Wikipedia, which are two.
100%. Which is, you can't trust those
That's just
sources at all. They're horrible.
like absolutely, it's all the negative stuff. Like it's all, it's yeah. So I guess when you're looking, you have to be a little bit. I mean, every every project carries a level of risk, and I guess it's just assessing what level of risk you're okay with putting the amount of money that you're thinking of putting into it. I guess um, because there'll be some things that are a green flag for me that might be a red flag for someone else, for instance. So I guess when you're doing your research and things are coming up for you, you've got to assess, okay, so say we're talking about the founders, that founder is associated with something that didn't work in the future, in the past. Does that then make a red flag for you, or is that something you can actually be okay with putting in this amount of money? So it's the discernment, right? Because
It's
knowing,
necessary.
yeah, because not, I mean, we know there's good projects out there, and it's just a matter of working out, okay, is this good enough to fit my criteria with what I'm willing to put my funds toward? And that goes for anyone else. I mean, they're going to have different criteria as well. What do you
You brought
think?
up a great point, right? Like, so myself and almost everyone I know, literally almost everyone I know at some point in time, at least in their early days, has been involved with some project where our intentions were really good. We didn't want to hurt anyone. We wanted to help our friends and family get a win. And it turns out that the founder was lying about their central premise and we didn't catch the lie. Does that mean that we're scammers? No. Most people have good intentions. They're not trying to do that. So it does happen to all of us. But that's when you've got to take it into context. What else are they doing right? Do their ideas have any merit? Are there some other red flags? Like, do they have a market supply of tokens that's a trillion tokens, and they're telling you it's going to go to $10? Okay, that's possible, but super unlikely. So do the founders own and control all of the tokens? You've got to be very cautious. Does that mean every time that happens that it's bad? No, but it's a big warning sign you've got to look into. Who controls, how were the tokens distributed? There are a lot of questions that we can get into, but I'll let you guide the conversation. I apologize.
Yeah, I actually do. I actually do want to know the questions that lead to the red flags. So, what other things should people be thinking about? Because we don't all have your knowledge of blockchain and Web3 and all of those things, but could you simplify? a few more questions, like you've just said, to create sort of a red flag list that might be red flags for most people.
Well, 2 or 3 years ago, I did this video series. I could probably dig it up and send it to you, but and then maybe you'll share with people. But I'll summarize it. Right, Bitcoin's claim to fame is that they are a fixed supply currency. Right, the Federal Reserve just prints as much as they want, meaning that if you were a local plumber who was distrusting of the banks, and every time you did a good job, you stored 30% of the cash you made that day and you stored it under your mattress in a box, and you continued to do that, and for 20 years you just kept being a saver, knowing that your kids were going to go to uni someday and you wanted to help them out. Well, 20 years from now, because it's not a fixed supply currency, they could print that into oblivion, and all those savings that you have might pay for 1 month's tuition all of a sudden. And that was 20 years of savings. That's horrible. And so one of Bitcoin's claims to fame is that it's a static supply versus an inflationary supply. And then the third tier of that would be a deflationary supply. And so if you've got a fixed supply at 21 million of Bitcoin, if you had a supply where this, if a currency where the maximum supply would always go down, that means that the currency is likely to be more valuable in time. So those are three things I look for. Is it fixed supply, static, inflationary, deflationary? What are we looking at? And how many tokens, right? Because have a market cap of a large number. If you've got a billion tokens, they've got to make each one of those billion tokens very valuable for it to turn into dollars, because we didn't come here to play for pennies. So it doesn't mean that it can't come to you can't turn in the token into $10 token, even with a supply of a billion, but it becomes very difficult. So I start to ask myself, okay, with a billion tokens, I then start to think, how many people in impoverished countries who only came to the table for pennies, who only want $2 a day, as a just using metaphors and round numbers here, where they're satisfied with $2 a day, but I didn't come to the party for that. How much sell pressure are they going to continuously create? Who holds the supply? Are we marketing to everybody in sub-Saharan Africa? I'm just got to pick a place here. I'm not trying to judge them. And $2 a day is all they want from this thing. Well, if there's 100 million people there who all just want $2 a day, they're going to hold that price down endlessly. The chances of us getting to large numbers becomes damn near impossible. So then I need to own a huge amount of tokens for it to add up to something substantial. So you've got to look at the token supply. You know, how much is it? How is it distributed over how many years? Who got it? Did the founders just go and give themselves 50% of the supply on day one? But we call that a pre-mine. All right, so if you're looking up crypto projects, is it a pre-mine? Did they get all of the tokens? Well, then what stops them from doing what Donald Trump did then? You know, 1 week after the election, all of his top supporters, they just hit the sell button and stole like $1 billion from their top supporters. It was so obvious that was going to happen. And somehow, but they're all in a cult, so they don't see it. They couldn't question their cult leader doing that. No, and then he did it the following week with his wife's coin as well. Same idea. But they invented it out of nowhere. They held the entire supply. There was no fair distribution. It was all pre-mined. It was pretty obvious that you were at massive risk of them one day hitting the sell button. That's the other thing. How hard did they work on getting the project off the ground? If you're building a physical proof of work mine and you've got tens and tens of millions of dollars and many years into building it, is the founder likely to hit that sell button? Or if they hired someone to create a smart contract 1 week ago and it cost them almost nothing, the likelihood that they hit that button one day is super high, right? So how hard did they work? What did they have invested in it? Not just money, but time, energy, and all that stuff. So I don't want to ramble too far, but do those ideas make sense of like things to look at?
Yeah, it does. I've got another question based on my history. I'm not going to use projects, but just okay. Say someone sends you a project and it's a trading, could be crypto, could be forex, whatever. The trades look real. Um, everything sort of checks out because of what you can find. If there's no information on the founders, is that a big definite no?
usually, but as someone who values their privacy big time and who thinks that security is only found in privacy, said another way, imagine you move back to your really small town and it's very impoverished and the main industry that used to thrive that town has left 20 years ago, and you show up in a private jet and you're prancing around town doing laps in your new Lamborghini. There might be someone who might get some ideas reading some articles on you about you online about just how much of a physical target you could be and how much of a reward they would get if they just got some leverage on you. Right.
Mm.
So if you're a wealthy crypto person, founders need personal security and privacy at some point in time. And so, and then we've also live in a country where there's lots of very litigious society. There's lawyers who are always after looking to steal money from successful people for no reason. Regulators do the same thing. They steal the money. That's what they do. So sometimes some people want to, so you've got to see, like, are they doing it for those reasons? Or are they doing it so you can't find them?
Mm. Yeah, that's sort of
Sometimes that's the truth.
yeah, okay, I get that. Okay, so are there signs, like say we're in some projects, are there signs that it could be a rug pull or a Ponzi? Like what are we looking for so that we can go, actually, let's withdraw now. Let's get all our seed money back as fast as possible. Like if we've already pulled the trigger and we're in, are there signs that could give us a heads up?
Well, number one is trust your intuition and don't let greed cloud your judgment. Because if you already have this feeling like someone may be up to no good, then you want to take your risk off the table as fast as possible. And we've all, at some chapter of our life, said, okay, this one makes me feel a little uneasy, but there's a lot of money here in the short term. Maybe I'll roll the dice, but then you want to take your risk out as quick as possible. But one of the biggest cautions I just want to leave people with is at some point in life, you've got to decide what game did you come to play. A lot of people come and play not to lose. So their first and only goal, and the only thing they can ever have a conversation about is, I dream. I'm 12 weeks away from getting all my money out, and I'm going to get all the money out. I'm going to get all the money out, and that's all they talk about. So that means then they have minimal commitment, minimal confidence. They do less research into the project, into where it's going. They put less energy into helping the community grow in some examples, and they miss out on the whole opportunity. What if you came to play to win? Right? Some people are like, I'm just going to put a little in and then get all my money out, and then I'll leave just peanuts on the table and hope the peanuts multiply. That may work out for you, but do you want freedom in your life at some point? Are you only here to turn 1,000 into 4,000? If is that all your biggest goal is going to be? Because your friends might turn it into 10 million right beside you, but you came to play not to lose, and I came to play to win. There's a big difference. You got to be cautious, that slippery slope. I'm not saying I never take any money off the table. I'm not saying I never reduce my risk, but that's not the first thought in my mind. My first thought in my mind is, what is the real opportunity here? Are they solving a real problem? Is there a chance they could alter my life? Is there a chance I could create real freedom here? And if it's cash flowing, oh, even better. If it cash flows, then at some point in time, you've got to then maybe decide how, instead of being, here's what people do, right? They get intellectually lazy. They say, okay, well, I only put a small amount of money in, and I only have a small goal at the end. So therefore, I'm only going to put a small amount of research into this thing. And I know I'm selling for sure in 12 weeks, and then I'll be risk-free sleeping at night, and I'm out. That could be a very expensive mistake, though, couldn't it? Because people who play to win say, oh my God, if I just do this and this, and if I do this and I take a little more risk, I can get 20,000 a month coming in from this, and that'll buy my freedom. I don't need $1 billion in the bank account. I just need X amount to live my lifestyle. If I could just get there, what do I got to do to get there? The moment I start having those thoughts, now I'm going to put a lot more time and energy of trying to decide whether this project is really legitimate. The owners are really trying to swing for the fences. Are they really going to build something? Can I contribute? Can I do more? And then, there's a big difference in that mindset of playing to win and playing not to lose. It goes along. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. Let me know in the chat, guys, if that's making any sense. If you've got any general
Yep, yep.
questions or any questions at all, just pop them into the chat for me. I actually want to switch gears. Just I want to know how a couple of things. So, do you have any tools or platforms that you recommend for researching?
I know a lot of people use them. I just don't, because I just see all the metrics as, generally speaking, flawed in some way, right? It always tells one part of the story, right? But I can go to Coin Market Cap if I'm looking at a crypto project. I'm gonna, again, go look at the fixed supply. You can go try and find out who owns all the coins. Some companies have a rich 100 list. I can go on to, let's say, if I'm on Binance Smart Chain, I can go and find out who are the top 100 holders. How much do those top wallets really hold? And just go do the math for myself instead of trusting a tool, right? And then, is it proof of work? Is it proof of stake? Who controls the whole network? Did they ever let any outsiders not become validators? Did they Was it all funded by venture capitalists and banks? Imagine a company starts with a great idea. Marnie, you and I come up with a great idea, and we're going to be the world's greatest privacy coin. Zcash is a perfect example of this. Zcash has some of the best engineers of all time. They know when they created that and they were implementing this Nobel Prize winning idea of called ZK snark, zero knowledge proofs. They knew they knew for sure at the outset that if they wanted to be truly private, they had to make sure that none of the wallets leak metadata. They knew for sure you couldn't have optional privacy. They understood a lot of these deep inherent flaws that Zcash has. And then later on, the developers come out on Twitter and say, we wish we had privacy by default, but we just couldn't do that. Well, just couldn't do that. Why? You knew it. You're acknowledging it. You're even endorsing a competitive product that's better. Well, because they took VC money. So who's funding it? If you take Bill Gates's money indirectly, or you take money from BlackRock indirectly, and the project did that, now all of a sudden they've got these great intentions, and they told you they were going to do something, but 3 months in, 6 months in, they took that money. That plan might change drastically. We
Mm.
promised we were going to respect the users and protect the users, but who are they protecting eventually? The big money that came in, right? So who funded it? How did it get funded? What are the, you've got to start looking at where are the tokens today? Where are they going to be in the future? And the biggest thing we haven't talked about is, does this project or company or whatever you want to call it, are they solving a problem? Could they win in the marketplace? Are they carving out a niche of some kind? They don't need to replace Bitcoin, but they've got to do something that someone else is not doing, or do it better, or have a better mousetrap. That's my first question before anything else. Could this idea win? I'll give you a quick example of people maybe a little too technical for them. I'll try and keep it simple. In the last bull run, I saw a project come out called Collateral Pay. The idea that they were going to make it easy for people to come in and out of crypto, and they were going to give you loans against your, let's say, your Bitcoin. So I don't have to sell the Bitcoin. I could always hold the asset that goes up in value. And they would allow me to keep that money and still buy the Lamborghini and keep the Bitcoin instead of selling the Bitcoin to buy the Lamborghini. I was like, that idea is gold. They're going to win. That solves a massive problem. Told all my friends and family, there's no affiliate program to it at all. I was just like, listen, I'm tracking this thing. This is a big winner. They're solving a huge problem. Big money in crypto is dying for this. Time to get some real money in front of it. That was going to solve a problem. It was like super obvious to me. I didn't even need to look into the founders and all the details. In hindsight, I probably should have looked into them more because they never ended up delivering. Now, whether that was from bad intent or good intent, it's hard to say in hindsight because I didn't look into it enough. I just heard the idea. They seemed super credible. Their marketing was awesome. Their community was fired up. Everything seemed to make sense. But the first thing that clicked right away is, that's solving a problem. I'm interested. That can win. Because you've got to ask yourself that for, there's a million projects and everyone's got a Me Too thing. That the founder's the greatest. He sings "Kumbaya" the best. He holds hands with everyone. He sings the company song well. Got a great voice. Those things don't matter. Are, is there a reason for their existence?
Yeah, I always think that. Are they just in to make money? Is it literally just lining pockets here? Is it just or is there a purpose, like, they have a good mission, or like, why do they exist? Why was it created? And this actually is not something that I thought of back in my journey. I was all just, oh, I can make a set amount of money per week. Like that, it sucked me in. And I was so fresh. It was my first ever thing. And yeah, but now I've learned so much. Let's just say the old money's gone and the new one is here, and we're having better conversations. I have another question for you. Okay, so um, I want to know what you think. Like, how do you see the passive income opportunities in Web3? Like, is it getting safer for us? Are there more bad actors? Like, how have you noticed it in this landscape?
Well, that depends on which time frames, right? Like I think there's windows of time where it gets better and then it gets worse. I think it kind of ebbs and flows. For a few years, wow, it got really bad. There was a major multi-billion dollar, that in hindsight they were all scams and it was pretty obvious. And but a lot of people participated. A lot of people did make money short term, but you got to be really cautious of that because we were in a program that seemed really legitimate. It actually went on great for years. So eventually you start to feel like, yeah. And it was a personal friend who told me about it. And I went on broker trust a lot, right? My personal friends, I know this guy. I've watched them do what they said they're doing. I've seen it with my own eyes. And all right, and then you start out small and then you scale your way in. And a lot of us made a lot of money for a while until we didn't. And then near the end, we had a friend who put $1 million in, and a few months later, the program's gone. Yikes. That is very scary. And so, and I've looked at lots of different ones because I'm always trying to find ways. How do I help my friends and family win? Like a lot of people just need small wins. Not everyone needs to get the big money. Some people are just looking for an extra $500, and someone's got a cool, slick, unique idea. A buddy of mine called me last night and he said, "Well, I got this sports betting thing that's looking really interesting." I said, I'm open minded. If it'll help some people, we'll look at it. And I was like, "How much risk are we talking?" He's like, "Well, there isn't really risk because you're not just betting on the winners and the losers. What they're doing, and I haven't decided if I'm doing it, but there's an arbitrage between all the incentives given on this betting platform and this betting platform." And he's like, "And so we bet both sides of the game. We bet it to win over here. We bet it to lose on this platform." He said, "But we've got this calculated formula that we make profit every day, no matter who wins or who loses." Because I've also looked at sports betting programs where they were telling you that the games were rigged and they could figure out who the winner was. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Hey, you make some money sometimes. You bet on the Super Bowl just for fun and made $5,000 one year. I was like, all right, good deal. All right, maybe they can predict it. But then you start losing too often and you're like, all right, that's not going to work. So you say, is it safer or riskier? If they got one where you win money, whether the team wins or loses, that's kind of interesting. So I'm willing to take a look. Like I told my buddy, I'll look closer at it. But I think it's about looking for those fixed percentage things. Those are not safe, and I don't think they're ever going to be safe. But what I do like a lot for passive income is if I'm getting token rewards in one fashion or another, then I've got to ask myself a few pertinent questions. Do I think that the token rewards will have longevity of some kind? And longevity doesn't need to mean 30 years. Can I count on it for a few years? Whatever that number is for you in your head, I need to count on that too. Do they have some kind of plan to make that token popular, utilized, valuable in some kind? Do they have a business model that makes sense? Do they have a reason that people might want to use it? Because if they do, I'll give you a great story. My high school, a guy I went to high school with, just an acquaintance, he was a validator on a blockchain that most people today still haven't heard of, but it's a top 50 project. You have to be in crypto to know about it, but it's done really, really well. It's a great success story. He became a validator in the early days. A validator has to commit and lock up a certain amount of money. They got to help run the chain. He gets token rewards for doing that. See, but he's on a real blockchain. That's the first thing. Are you getting token rewards just because you bought into some random NFT, because you bought into some random just smart contract, just sending out tokens kind of program? You got to start looking at why are they sending you tokens? Are you doing something for them? Is there a purpose for it? But he goes and he does it. He takes his chances on it. My brother goes for a ski trip over to Austria. Guy randomly reaches out. I'm going to meet you for a ski trip. My brother's like, what? Guy meets him. They hung out for weeks. He's like, I got lots of time and money, freedom. He's like, oh, I'm in crypto. My brother's like, yeah, we are too. What do you got? He's like, well, I'm a validator. My brother's like, I need to learn more about that. Like, I've heard the term, but I don't understand how that works. He pulls up his screen. He's 35. He's 33, or he was 35 years old at the time, and he had $32 million in his bank account. And he was still generating enormous sums of money on a regular basis because he's an owner of a blockchain that was successful. He owns a piece of the blockchain infrastructure, and as an operator of that infrastructure, there are justifiable token rewards. And that blockchain became popular, and a lot of people use it. And there are a lot of gas fees and transaction fees, just like Visa and MasterCard do. There are real transaction fees. So I know where they're paying me, why they're paying me, where those fees are being generated from. And a lot of blockchains have like a base rate or some kind of reward for helping you maintain the chain. So you can see a predefined contract. And so is that passive income? Well, it's paid in tokens with a market value and it can pay you millions of dollars. So I would say, yeah, but that's legitimate. That's a strong case for why passive income should be looked at. A blockchain infrastructure I can own, and I can see a path to someone making that blockchain popular. It doesn't need to beat Bitcoin. It just has
Mhm.
to become, crypto top 100, crypto top 50. They can become crypto top 10 and you can get in the early days and own some infrastructure. Passive income is something I'm super excited about and I'm in for all day long. But is it some guy who invented this little smart contract scheme that he just sends you tokens that'll be gone next year, no one's ever going to use, no one's ever going to need, and the tokens you're being paid are invented out of thin air and have no use case and they have no rhyme or reason in the distribution schedule. They have no, it's a fixed supply forever. I mean, what? There's got to be, I've got to be able to justify where are they coming from. But I'm a
So
big collector of those. Sorry.
does that tie into the is this sustainable? Because I know a lot of people have that question, like is and I guess are they asking, is this going to be around for a while? And are there, I mean, if the founders check out, if the purpose of the business checks out, is that a given that the project will be around, the company will be around? So how do you answer, or how do you satisfy that question for yourself? That is it sustainable?
Well, I think that comes down a lot to, am I playing to win or am I playing not to lose, right? Because if my goal is freedom, my goal is not to like, hey, I'm going to triple my money over here. So what? There's a million places you can do that. We're in a crypto bull run right now. You're about to see a window of time coming up very soon if you're paying close attention, where every crypto project will go up by like 10 or 20x, probably in a matter of like 2, 3 weeks. It'll happen so fast. And if you get in at the bottom and sell at the top, you get like 20x your money. And most of those things are not sustainable. And it'll happen even in projects you've never heard of that have no use case and won't even be around 5 years from now. So tripling my money is not a reason to come play the game. Oh, I could double my money. I could take my risk off the table in a week. Who cares? I mean, I know some people do, and I don't mean to belittle it. It's just that's not my mindset. I'm looking for freedom. I have two major investment theses, and I think everyone needs to boil down what are their investment theses first. Like, what's your philosophy? What did you come for? What are your real goals in life? I look for two major things. I'm looking for the next Netflix, right? If you look back 20 years and I said, hey, listen, you can go to the video store, you can drive there in the middle of winter, you can pay, $10 per movie and you've got to drive and you have to return it and there's late fees and you got to, or there's a new platform, you don't even have to leave the couch. It's $10 per month, not per movie. And you never leave the house. It's like, oh my God, of course that's going to win. Like, we're fools in hindsight. It's like, of course that was going to win.
Because
Did
it's
anyone
solving a
think
massive
Amazon?
problem. We're lazy. We don't
Probably the
want to
mass.
go out.
Did Amazon was Amazon not solving a major problem? Like it was so obvious to me if you look back. And so, you know, you keep looking at those kinds of mega trends, and I always say, okay, well, we're not done with that. There's always something that's changing in the economy. I've been looking for the next Netflix, and I'm not here for a doubling my money. I'm here for the big win. I'm looking for that thing. And then my other thing that I look for me is cash flow. I don't need billions in the bank to have my freedom. If I want to get rid of my alarm clock, I just have to make money in my sleep. I have to make more than my expenses and enough to fund a lifestyle. That's all that you need. If your lifestyle costs you $8,000 a month and you're making $15,000 a month, you don't need to be Mark Cuban. You have your freedom bought for you. And so, and that doesn't have to be only in one place. So I'm a collector of things that cash flow, and I'm also a collector of things that might have a Netflix potential. But I'm always into play for the big win. I don't do it. I don't put all my money in only one place. But I came for the big win. I didn't come to just take my money out in 3 months just because I can. Doesn't mean you should. You're right, because those tokens I'm selling for peanuts are going to be worth a lot more money down the road, and I'm selling them just so I can. For what? I mean, I don't. Again, it depends how much you risked. It depends on what your philosophy is, what you're playing for. But it makes a big difference how you play the game.
Yes. So I have one final question. And so in this crypto Web3 blockchain space, let's talk quickly about regulations. I get a lot of those questions. Is it licensed? Is it regulated? And and can you tell us, like, is every crypto project bound by certain things depending on where it's headquartered? Like what do you look for? Is it actually something that you look at? Can you give a bit of info on that?
This is a real love hate subject and one that's thorny for people, but one of my favorite ones to deep dive into because it's the perspective that people need. Crypto was not designed to be in the bounds of regulators. Regulators are trying to protect their monopoly, not you. Get it through your head. That's all regulators do. And crypto was here to replace them. That's its only purpose. That's what it was designed for. It was designed to be external to the system, to replace it. That is its only purpose for existing. And the idea has always been about permissionless. Permissionless meaning I don't need your permits and your license to interact peer to peer with someone. Just the same way you don't need someone's permission to go on a date, or to date someone. I don't need someone's permission. I don't need your goddamn permission. I don't need anyone's permission. I don't live my life that way. And so there is none of it's all the regulators are only in there to steal money. When the SEC leans on a company, they're there to steal money. Those are the really bad pirates, if you're looking for an easy term of the world. They're there to plunder and to steal from people who are building good businesses. I only look at whether the business is honest, whether they have a use case, will the market accept it. It was designed to be digital, peer to peer currency with no intermediary. No intermediary means I don't need a regulator in between. I'm not looking for their permission to do something. So the first thing I care about is it fraudulent? Is the market gonna like this thing? Here's the thing. If you're onto something great, okay, Bitcoin could not be stopped. Bitcoin could not be taken down. It's not because they did something legal or not, whether they got permission or not, whether they were regulated or not. They were outside of the bounds of all of that. They just simply couldn't be stopped. And that's why you have Bitcoin SV, BSV. That's why you have Bitcoin Cash. That's why you have all these things. They had to split and fork the chain in many times. There was a thing called the block wars. What they did, because they couldn't stop Bitcoin, because they weren't just okay with it. They didn't just sanction it and tell everyone, okay with you replacing the dollar. No, that's never. They started taking over the mining equipment. They started buying up the token supply. They started buying all the banks and controlling what the banks who will let you go from dirty fiat dollars to crypto, they controlled in the middle because that's all they could control. They started implementing KYC and AML policies because they wanted to get rid of the anonymity that blockchain could provide. those are all attacks on Bitcoin. It's never been regulated, sanctioned, licensed, endorsed. And the only reason why they've changed their tune now is because they've fully taken over. That's the only reason, right? And so there's some risk when you're in a revolutionary space because that's what it's here for. That if you poke the thumbs in the eyes of powerful people, they might try and disrupt you. They might. And there's no stopping that. But did you play not to lose or did you play to win? Because if you playing to win and someone does disrupt the whole apple cart, it changes everything. It changes the whole world and it certainly changes your world. And so this idea that anyone would go and ask the state for permission to, if we're trying to create honest money and we live in a world that has dishonest money, did the people have a monopoly on dishonest money? The people who own a printing press with no oversight, no rules, could bribe all their cronies and bribe anyone they want. Are they just going to sit back and just like cheer you, tell the world, hey, listen, you guys should all go buy that honest money? They're not going to just tell you to go buy the honest money. They have a monopoly on it. So I find it just, I'm I'm making fun of it, but I'm not trying to be rude. It's like people haven't looked into why crypto exists. We're trying to get rid of those ideas. Everyone knows the police and the courts are corrupt in every country of the world. The bankers have never been on the side of the people. Those are corrupt people, corrupt entities, corrupt individuals, and they attract corruption like moths to the light, right? What's more just, an honest, smart contract, a digital, impartial jury? You know, you ever see on a movie and they're like, the jury's going to disregard that truth from the record. The what? That's not an impartial process, but a smart contract that has predefined terms is, right? It's a great, 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 one of my favorite speeches of all time, videos from Eric Voorhees online. He spoke at a conference called Permissionless 2. And if you just listen for about 20 minutes, he explains why smart contracts and real financial rules that are honest for both parties, for all parties involved, is a much more honest and just system. And that's what blockchain was here to create. They can't stop it. They've been trying to stop it for 17 years. And by the way, every lawsuit in the last year that did exist has all gone away. Almost every single lawsuit has been dropped. So there are no guarantees in the future, right? But I like the odds. It's a better climate that they're giving up the fight. And they're only doing it because they feel like they've already taken it all over, right? But if you're betting on a small community project, you know, a dark horse leader in the background, whatever you think, that's a little ant in the shadows, but someday is going to emerge as an elephant, might change the whole world and definitely could change yours. So don't wait around for permission from tyrants. When you were a teenager, if your parents were tyrannical, if the school system was tyrannical and did something that didn't make any friggin' sense, did you just wait around for their permission? Some people did. That was never me. I'm certainly not going to start today.
I love that perspective. And I feel like a lot of people on this call would actually be in alignment with that. So that's very, I love it. Thank you.
I need
I
permission to keep my own money
I
also.
know.
I mean, anyone not think that's the most insane idea ever?
I know. But you know what? I do, and I think maybe it's from people who are newer to this space and they aren't, well, maybe if there's someone that's cool, they now know they just need to step back and think, why am I here? What am I even looking into these things for? You know, because we're here to make change. Like we know the system's broken, so we need to make and create some income for ourselves outside of that system. So we have options. And that
Mandatory.
comes with certain things, you know, it's not as black and white as the system that we've grown up with. So, you know, you've got to be a little bit more, as I said, as you said, open minded. And I guess I think, well, I've got a lot of value out of this in terms of the questions that you run through your mind when you're thinking about a project. And, you know, if your buddy calls you and says, this is how it works, you like step back and go, okay, well, why does it exist in the first place? So I found that really helpful. So I hope everyone on the call did as well. I will wrap it up here because we've spoken for way longer than I thought we would. So I really
Oh,
appreciate your time. No. It's good. I love it. So I really want to say thank you so much, Terry, for tuning up and helping us understand a little bit better about the better questions that we should be thinking about. And
I like that. Better questions, right?
yeah, better questions so that we can actually change things for ourselves. And I think that's where we want to go. We don't want to choose the wrong thing. God, we've all had a learning curve, but we don't want as big a learning curve as some of us have been through. And I think this is going to help us move forward, and that we can be a little bit more confident in our decisions to say yes or no for our family. So thank you so much.
I'll
I'm
leave you
seeing
with
some
one
thank yous. Go, go.
just one closing thought, Marty, and thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone, got something, some nugget in there. But and I apologize for the rants. I get excited, but the system that we're in was rigged for you to fail. It's not optional to stay in it and only in it forever. It was like there used to be when our parents used to be able to have one in household income, buy the house, the boat, the cottage, and live a great life and sleep comfortably and send their kids to school. Today, no one can even afford a house. I got cousins who are in their 30s who can't leave home. They can't even make it work with roommates. Like it's the system is rigged for you to fail. You can't just stay in it no matter what. And you at some point you've got to believe that those people have your worst interests at heart. And sometimes not everyone who's creating something outside of the system is out to hurt you or take something from you. Maybe they're trying to build something great and they just want you to be a part of it. And we can be a part of something that maybe changes the world and certainly changes our world. And sometimes you've just got to lean in and you've got to take some calculated risks. It's necessary, but don't be fools. Ask some good questions. Don't let the greed get in the way. And don't just take the face value answer from AI. Dig a little deeper and we can do some great things together. So if there's any other way I can help any of you, maybe we're connected on Telegram. If not, Marnie can connect us, and I'm happy to help. Marnie, thank you so much for your time. Great to finally get to know you and see you face to face. So much better to talk face to face once in a while, right?
It is. All right. Thank you so much. All right. We'll speak to you all again soon.
Perfect. Have a great day.
Bye.